Hello, I'm Interweb Studios and today we ask Reddit what are some terrifying villains that were correct. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe and comment any evil villains I may have missed. But, more importantly, sit back and enjoy the video. Magneto is my favorite villain of all time. Every time his motives are brought to light I get that, yeah, I kinda get it, moment. One of the only good bits out of that god-awful excuse for a Phoenix movie, X3, was just Magneto giving side-eye to the young mutants asking for his tattoos. He just whips out the concentration camp number and stone cold, "No one is ever marking me again." Like that was a bad movie, but at least they got that attitude right. Another good one from that movie was, Charles Xavier did more for mutants than you will ever know. My single greatest regret is that he had to die for our dream to live. The bears from Goldilocks and the Three Bears. She broke in, ate their food, broke some furniture, and slept in their beds. My 4-year-old loves it when the bears eat her, at least in the one I tell him. He always says he thinks she is the bad person. Lol. Stevie from Wizards of Waverly Place. Her entire goal was to stop families from giving up their magic to just one person in the family. Like we're really supposed to be rooting against her? It just seems super out of character for Alex to go against that plan. I was thinking exactly this. Why give up your powers when everyone can have them? Only one member of the family having wizard powers seems unsustainable for the wizarding world. I get it that it was not very nice of her to trap her brother, but she was 100% right. I really thought Alex would do it. I cannot understand how or why did Alex double-cross her. On a side note, I always thought it was a cruel system and that the Russo parents were also somewhat cruel for having 3 kids knowing that 2 would eventually have to live the rest of their lives believing they weren't good enough, or smart enough, to carry their family's legacy. Count Dooku just straight up told Obi-Wan that the Sith control the Senate. I still love the fact that Dooku tells him this and Obi-Wan knew about the clone army being set up under the Jedi's noses and no one decided to investigate that possible connection until years into the Clone Wars. Dooku is a really nuanced character. Even though he was Sith, he never fully submitted to the dark side. He also recognized the Jedi had become ineffectual at solving problems and the Republic was bloated and corrupt. He was an idealist that wanted what was best for the galaxy, even if that meant joining the nemesis of his old order. Edit. Obviously this was his original motivation and intention before he truly became an evil tyrant. I'm not saying he's a good guy or this is somehow vindicating. It's just a classic case of someone having decent intentions and screwing it up with terrible execution. Maul. His last words before being captured by the Republic was, "You're all going to burn. You're all going to die. You don't know what you're doing." He tried to warn Ahsoka of Palpatine's ultimate plan but she didn't listen. He even told her that Palps was planning on using her master. I mean, he connected the dots right there but it was too late. Ken from the Bee Movie. I too would go absolutely berserk if a talking bee stole my girlfriend and gaslit me into thinking I was crazy. Every time I hear the plot of this movie, I think it can't possibly be real. It gets crazier as you go on. Okay, so it's a movie about talking bees who have their own little society. Okay, that's cute. And then the main bee finds a human to become friends with, still tracks. Then they start an interspecies romance even though she's married in a relationship with another human. What? And then they work together to sue the human race over honey theft? And they win? And then it turns into an environmental apocalypse? What? Also, the main bee appears to be male, but all worker bees are female. Male bees are essentially useless until it's time to mate with the queen to start a new hive. Then they die. Hate to break it to you, but that's just the side plot. The main plot involves a bee suing all of humanity. Oh, and then the third act tackles the ecological and economic impacts of losing bees as pollinators and that bee has to acquiesce and allow his fellow bees to remain indentured servants so as to save the world. Never mind that it's native bees, not honeybees, that are the essential pollinators. Not a true villain but Squidward. Damn, as SpongeBob an annoying neighbor I'd hate him too. Squidward's a minimum wage worker in a monotonous day job with a boss who explicitly wants him to earn as little as possible and cuts costs everywhere. while having a musician's heart and playing his passion instrument to have some happiness and relaxing time for himself. He then proceeds to have his only time of peace and tranquility stolen from him by a loud, inconvenient neighbor who doesn't take care of his shit and makes fun of him for not being a pro at music. Most SpongeBob episodes I watch nowadays have me rooting for Squidward to just murder those two morons before they induce a depression breakdown on our Squid Boy. Not to mention when he gets off from work his coworker is next door. And when he goes to work his neighbor is there. I'd blow my brains out if I had to see my coworkers every single day. Squidward was right about adulthood. Especially if you work low wage, on call, stressful jobs. Ultron browsed the internet for 30 seconds and decided humanity had to go. He could have come straight to Reddit and saved himself 29.5 seconds. Please, it'd still take him 15 seconds for Reddit to load. And the video player would take another 10 seconds to load. The guy in Legend of Korra who wanted to end special privileges for benders. Perfectly captured that right idea, fascist execution, concept and dread. Amon the Equalist. Except he was secretly a bender all along and was only doing it to get revenge for his dead father by destroying Aang's legacy. Yup. I actually didn't like that turn. I found him way more terrifying as he was first introduced. Not that that entire plotline wasn't awesome all the way down. It just felt a bit of a letdown that he was just another bendy villain. Colonel Kurtz. We train young men to drop fire on people, but their commanders won't allow them to write "duck" on their airplanes because it's obscene. Also worth noting that most of Brando's scenes were improvised. They filmed him talking shit off the top of his head, 4 hours at a time, and then used the best bits. Most of his scenes were improvised because he didn't bother to learn his lines. Dude was supposed to show up thin, even emaciated, playing a character starving himself to death like Gandhi. They wanted Streetcar Brando. Instead he never took off the weight from Godfather, for the rest of his life, really. Didn't bother to read Heart of Darkness. Didn't learn his lines. Got them fed into an earwig by an assistant. This movie was the beginning of the end for Brando. The replicants from Blade Runner. Used as slaves and given artificially short lives. They just wanted to live and be free. In the book they didn't have artificially short lives. The scientists just couldn't figure out how to make them live longer. Their digestive system would start breaking down. Frankenstein's monster, Adam, created by a short-sighted, arrogant doctor as the first of his race, then denied the opportunity to be part of a community, of his own, man-made beings, or the human community. He only became monstrous after it became clear that Frankenstein would never create another of his kind, and was driven mad by his desire to punish Frankenstein's hubris. So, Frankenstein was the monster after all. Knowledge is knowing Frankenstein wasn't the monster. Wisdom is knowing he was. Otto from Wall-E. It was one of the only almost perfectly executed, villains. He never really talks unless needed because he wasn't programmed to, no malicious motives, does everything efficiently. He's only bad because he's following his programming, protect the humans and don't let them back to Earth. Not out of malicious intent, but it was what he was programmed to do. And his directive isn't even incorrect. Wall-E finding that plant was like finding a 4-leaf clover in a field of grain. The planet was nowhere near habitable, and they barely know how to stand when they get back. In reality, you know nobody on that axiom is going to make it very far. Edit. Some of you missed the main point of the original post and started arguments on how humans could survive. Remember me thinking they wouldn't make it far alone is only any theory, and I'm not saying it's 100% truth, but I'm kinda tired and I keep getting people saying the same thing, so I thought I would just say that so I could go to sleep and hopefully have a couple less people ticked off when I wake up than I would had I not said that. Edit 2. Well, I woke up and this comment blew up a bit. Just want to say that contrary to popular belief, I did watch the end credits. It's a Pixar movie. Did you expect them to actually show civilization fail and die? I just had a theory on what would happen if they went with a more grim approach. They could still live, but they also had a chance they wouldn't. Without the couple minutes end credits thrown in at the last second, it's really just an open-ended question I added one of many answers to. None of you said the most terrifying one. Lex Luthor. We're only safe as long as Superman thinks it's fun to be the hero. Just ask the boys. There was a very good reason they made Lex a good guy in Injustice. If he hadn't been, Clark would have been ducked the day he killed Joker. Mojo Jojo from the Powerpuff Girls. He wanted to bring free energy and advanced technology to the people. And in one episode he actually did. He made the world an amazing place. And then the Powerpuff Girls ruined it all. I just read his backstory, pretty sad. The professor accidentally created him by spilling chemical X on him. He was a lab assistant at the time. But then after the Powerpuff Girls were created, the professor eventually neglected Mojo and left him to live out on the streets. The Matrix's Agent Smith, I tried to classify your species. I realized that you're not actually mammals. Every mammal on this planet instinctively develops a natural equilibrium with their surrounding environment, but you humans do not. You move to another area, and you multiply, until every natural resource is consumed. The only way you can survive is to spread to another area. There is another organism on this planet that follows the same pattern. Do you know what it is? A virus. Human beings are a disease, a cancer of this planet. Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin from Spider-Man. In spite of everything you've done for them, eventually, they will hate you. Dude was right about how the perception of public figures changes over time. I chose my path, you chose the way of the hero. And though they found you amusing for a time, if there's one thing people love more than a hero, it's to see a hero fall, fail, die trying. Dr. Doofenshmirtz. He was his most right when he rapped, "There's a platypus controlling me underneath the table." So true. Don't we all each have our own personal platypuses controlling us from under tables? I love Doof, but nothing about him is terrifying. Wait until you hear his childhood stories. Man has seen some shit. It's a surprise how he hasn't turned into a serial killer already. And with that, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment any notable villains I may have missed. Until next time.